Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Pulse podcast, where we give small answers to the big questions that people have about the faith. My name is Tariq, and I'm your host today. I'm joined with MT. Hey MT, how are we doing?
Good.
Great.
Good.
How are you feeling about this episode? All of this stuff?
I feel good. It's sometimes you get questions and you're like, does a small answer suffice? But that's what we set out to do, so I got to keep it short.
That's it. Let's keep it short and sweet. So let's dive right in. The question we're going to be answering today is, what does the Bible say about gender equality?
Yeah, really good question. This question doesn't come in a vacuum. It's important to note. We've seen successive waves of feminism, right? Women fighting for, campaigning for more rights, more responsibilities. And so some people look at the Bible and they say, okay, cool, what does the Bible have to say to this cultural moment? What does the Bible have to say to this? I think in that it's important to just put some sort of clear pillars on the ground. One is that men and women in the eyes of God are absolutely equal. That's not a culturally cool thing to say. I'm not saying that because it's culture. That's just the truth. The Bible makes that abundantly clear. And just because some Christian men didn't stand by that in the past doesn't mean it wasn't true then. And even though some men, may not stand by it now, doesn't mean it's not true now. Where do I get that from? Well, Genesis 1:27 makes it clear. It states, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Now, it means we have equal creative dignity, right? In the eyes of God, men and women have full equality. However, I hold to what we call a complementarian worldview or theological view, which means that whilst men and women are absolutely equal in the eyes of God, they have complementary roles when it comes to marriage, when it comes to family, and when it comes to religious life. And so some people get into, are you complementarian, are you egalitarian? These are terms you may hear bandied around. But I think it's important to really consider what we mean when we say complementary or complementarianism. So when we say something's complementary, or we talk about complementarianism, we're saying something that completes, right, or makes perfect. So we're talking about two parts or things needed to complete a whole, right? That's what we mean when we say complementarian. So complementarians believe that God created male and female as complementary expressions of the image of God. Right, he said man was created, and he said he created them, man and female. So there's something about about maleness and femaleness being different but equal that completes the image of God. And so we would say, whilst that equality is absolutely right, God expresses himself by giving males and females different roles that they fulfill within marriage, within family, and within religious life. And so for me, complementarians would say, well, within church structures, males have specific roles and females have specific roles, or men and women have specific roles. They might say within marriage, males are to have headship and they're the head of the home, and women, don't head up the family in that same way. You might have, in churches, some complementarians believe that the ability to exercise spiritual authority over men is a role reserved solely for men, and instead, women ought to teach other women or to teach kids, right, or to exercise spiritual authority in that way as well. So that's the kind of complementarian worldview. It maintains that there's absolute equality in the eyes of God, but God still gives different roles to different people, and those roles, I don't know why he gives it, but it might be in keeping with pre-existing dispositions men and women have. It might be in keeping with God's creative order. I mean, God created Adam, then he created Eve from his rib. I mean, there's all these things that, quite frankly, are above my pay grade that we have to look at and say, we can't divorce ourselves from the reality of what's in the Bible around those things. So that's me trying to speak to the more cultural issue that some people go, well, why can't women be pastors, or why can't women be this? Aren't they the same? And I think that's to confuse equality with kind of like homogeneity, I would say, right? This idea that things have to be exactly the same in order for them to be equal. An example I always give people is when you say, what's more important, a heart surgeon or a brain surgeon? You would go, it's a silly question, because they're just operating on different parts of the body. It doesn't really matter. The importance question is irrelevant. However, they both do very different things. You wouldn't say a brain surgeon would be like, just operate on the heart. Why not? No, you'd go, no, I'm a specialist in this area. Yeah. So in the same way, within marriage, within family, and within the church, God gives males and females specific roles, and it's not about what's more important. I think it's in keeping with God's creative order and larger things he may be doing on the earth that we don't know.
Awesome. And on the point you made, so it's about, is it contrarianism and
complementarianism and egalitarianism.
Egalitarianism.
Yeah.
So I've heard an argument recently about Paul, the Apostle Paul, when he says that, women should remain quiet in the church, how there's an argument almost that he contradicts himself in scripture when he says that, but then maybe honors a Priscilla at some point. Like, what would you say to that? And what viewpoint would you say the Apostle Paul took?
Yeah, I think Paul was complementary, and so important to note, within religious life, so within the church structure, within sort of liturgy, how church is arranged, how services are done, there's clear sort of guidelines, I think, given in the Bible about, an elder being the husband of one wife, right? You can only be the husband of one wife if you're a husband, right, of one wife. Sure. But that doesn't negate the place of women teaching, preaching, prophesying. In Titus, you had older women teaching younger women. Women have a plethora of roles and have a very, very important place in religious life. It's just that God gives men specific roles of headship, right? And headship doesn't mean domineering, I'm in charge. It's none of that nonsense. That's borrowed from the world. The idea that the CEO is the top dog and everyone's like, I want to be the CEO. In the church, it's not like that. God gives specific roles because he equips people for that role, and it's in keeping with his creative order. Yeah. When Paul is correcting women, he grounds it in the creative order, right? He says Adam was great. Like he carries on what he sees as a continuation of what God's always been saying and doing, which is maintaining the equality of both sexes and genders, but giving specific roles to one and specific roles to the other. I mean, I'll give you a quick example, which maybe work the other way. No matter how nice, soft, I could never mother a child. I just don't have, because mothering isn't just a case of doing specific things. It's this affinity that a baby shares with its primary caregiver. I mean, the one who gave birth to it. You can't mother a child by doing certain actions. Likewise, you can't pastor a church by just doing specific actions. That's to reduce that sacred role into a set of do's and don'ts and a set of responsibilities when it's far deeper than that. It's God, through his creative order, structuring things as he sees fits. And God, who I believe is a sort of a divine balancer, in the range of roles and responsibilities he gives men and women, I trust him to kind of balance it in a way. So for instance, you've been told before that men are the head of the home, but a wife is the neck. And so some wives have this sort of soft power that's arguably more important than the headship role. Right. Because they're the ones who actually can drive and change. And you've heard it said, if you want a happy life, a happy wife, if you want a home to look a certain way, you have to, like, there's all these sayings. I'm not saying they're 100% true or accurate, but they point to the idea that power is often shared, right? That's what true partnership is. But that doesn't negate the place that God gives specific genders and specific sexes.
Awesome.
Hey, thank you so much for watching that video and for staying all the way till the end. We are on a journey to 10,000 subscribers. So if you like that video, if you want to see more from us, if you want to support us, do so by clicking the subscribe button. Our mission here is to help you discover Jesus and to equip you to make him known. So keep talking about Jesus and hit the subscribe button.